Within the foregoing general rubric of broad template of good governance and accountability, I will now go on to discuss what I consider appropriate route for the coming government. I've talked about how we sabotage accountability mechanisms and all of that, so you know the answers to all of that. But I want to be specific in areas I consider very important for the incoming administration. For me, the greatest accountability challenge before the incoming administration is uniting this country. The process must start by being fair to its composite ethnic nationalities as practicable as possible. I was reading somewhere, somebody was saying that instead of ideology, we concentrate on identity. It will be the height of naivety if anybody imagined that contestation for power in Nigeria today will not be identity related. 7.5 years of this government and a crass demonstration of its sensibility to our diversity has heightened our identity consciousness in Nigeria. So how do you imagine that we will contest for power and identity will not be possible, will not be a factor, your ethnicity, your religion, and all of that? The incoming administration must see management of this diversity as the number one. Accountability is the number one. They must be accountable. He must avoid, or they must avoid the 97%, 5% conundrum of the outgoing Buhari administration. Because 97% voted for me, they take everything. 5% voted for me, they didn't vote for me. You deprive them of their rights. It's absolutely important. If we don't unite this country, we ain't going nowhere. We must do whatever. The deliberate effort must be made to make the public space more inclusive so that those who feel genuinely alienated can be brought back into the mainstream of our governance process without in any way compromising quality. You must be inclusive. The centrifugal forces that are trying to pull this country apart has grown in strength. We deny it at our peril. And let me just say this, and this is very important. Anybody that denies the importance of diversity in a multinational, multi-ethnic country like Nigeria, cobbled together for the interest of the colonialists, doesn't know what he's talking about. Look at Africa. All the conflicts in Africa, from the Horn of Africa, all through, even the one of two generals in Sudan, all of them have a substructure of ethnic competition. Every one of them in Africa. Look at Ethiopia. Ethiopia used to be the poster boy of growth and development. See what it has become. Because they have not managed their diversity right. Rwanda. 1 million people in 100 days. The most intense genocide in human history. How are they managing the diversity? That's for another day. But I have said, the ultimate judgment of Kagame's success is when denialism comes into intersection with ethnic reality. If you can, then we've said you have succeeded. It's not enough to say you cannot be a Hutu, you cannot be a Hutu. Or you cannot fill a form and say you are Hausa Igbo, you are something. That's not the solution. The solution is to be deliberately fair, just. And I want to also say that it is also important for the incoming administration to engage with all the forces that are agitating in this country. The Nnamdi Kanus of this world, the Igbohos of this world, all of them, we must engage them and resolve all these problems so that we can have a united country and drive towards development. So for me, diversity management is number one. There has been a lot of discussion recently about the issue of government of national unity. The incoming administration says, no, we don't believe in government of national unity. We believe in government of national competence. The argument has been interesting and useful. Perhaps representing the polar ends of the argument have been those of Kayode Fayemi, governor, an APC chieftain, and Tanko Yakasa, a prominent elder statesman. I'll just give you what they said. Dr. Fayemi said, 1st of March Punch, that the president-elect, Bola Tinubu and APC, to seriously consider a government of national unity given the excellent performance of the opposition political party, noting that in this historic election cycle, there's no victor, no vanquished. This is not a time for triumphalism, but a time to celebrate the resilience of ordinary Nigerians with sobriety. The following day, the 2nd of March, in the Punch, Alhaji Tanko Yakasai, another statesman, disagreed, saying he will not suggest that the incoming government should run a government of national unity. His reason? I want democracy to develop. Democracy is a business of competition. Repeal competition from democracy, you have killed democracy. Let everybody come with his own program. Those are the two polar ends of the argument. But I say whichever side you take in this divide, my contention is that the nation needs concrete action on concrete critical areas of our polity. Hitherto seemingly controversial areas for which consensus seems to have emerged, going by the manifesto of the main parties, should be rammed up for action immediately. The most important of these issues are the following. What I'm saying is that whether you call it government of competence, government of national unity, there should be an irreducible minimum agenda for the incoming administration, for which we must hold them accountable, because these were clearly spelled out in their manifestos. Incidentally, all the major political parties. Some of these are the following. Number one, state policing, devolution of resources, subsidy to people and petroleum product, cashless economy, and catalyzation of jobs for the youth of this nation. Now let me just pick about 1 minute each. Apart from uniting Nigeria, the accommodation must secure Nigeria. And when we've gone through all their manifestos, all of them have talked about increasing the quantity and the quality of police, their training, their emolument, and all of that. But all of them, they have also subscribed to the fact that a centralized policing system cannot work for Nigeria, that policing must be decentralized to the subnational, state police. So, for me, it is important to hold the incoming government accountable on that, because that is what they have promised us. The incoming administration must immediately put in motion the instruments to actualize subnational policing, on which operational modalities, tons of ideas have been generated, not less in the 2014 confab or even in the APC True Federalism document itself. Devolution of resources, all of us also agree that we must devolve resources to the subnational and also hold them accountable. Buhari administration did something very recently. It decided to sign into law some constitutional amendments. Two of them are particularly important to me. Number one is removing railway from the exclusive list to concurrent list, and also power generation, power transmission, and power distribution, also concurrent. And of course, autonomy to the legislature. I think these are very important devolution and restructuring mechanisms that must be built upon. It is advisable in this regard that a small committee be put in place immediately to distill all elements that are readily implementable in either the 2014 confab or the APC True Federalism Committee report for implementation. Subsidy on petroleum products. Now, I said earlier on that 96.3% of our income is being spent to service debt. I'm told that from 3.6 trillion already gulped this year, I've said it earlier on, if you add servicing responsibility from subsidy, is more than income. And there seems to have been a consensus on the need to remove subsidy from petroleum products. But attached to that has also been the concern that there must be a palliative mechanism, a palliative regimen to cushion the effect on the people who are going through these very harsh economic times that we are in. Some have argued that we should first of all be able to fix local refinery capacity before we remove subsidy. It's neither here nor there. People agree that the subsidy regime is one kind, it's like a criminal enterprise. And it involves a lot of money. The question I ask people is that those who benefit from subsidy, will they ever allow the refineries to work? So when you are talking sequentially, that first of all, let refinery before you remove subsidy. But what is important, I'm sure what's important to people, is if the people are sure that you can put in place a cushioning effect, making that will actually touch and affect the people who need them, I think the opposition will melt a bit. Not the type of $800 million that World Bank has given us, that they say they want to share among 50 million people. Divided by 50 million, 7,000 per person. Isn't that? Okay. Any government that does that cannot be the most creative government that we're talking about. I know what 800 million can do if it is properly applied. At times, yes. Let me boast a bit, because I have boasting rights in some areas. I have bragging rights. Look, just an example. For the duration of my governance in Ondo State, we gave every pregnant woman resident in Ondo State, and those who came from other states to benefit, had access to completely free maternal services from inception to delivery, including cesarean section. And we have the best outcome. Everybody can talk about it. But the point I'm making is, I know how much we spent because we put cost to care. And when I extrapolated, every condition being equal, it can't be equal. That is, if you have the staffing, you have the something. Nationally, if you want to expand it, for every pregnant woman in Nigeria to have access to quality, free. Anybody that tells you that free and quality are paradox in time, just tell them to go to those states of our regime. Free and quality, maximum, even with inflation, 70 billion we do it. Or let me say, 1% of subsidy money will do it. So what I'm saying is that I'm not sure that those who are opposed to removal of subsidy don't know that it's a criminal enterprise. But they are worried about the effect. If suddenly tomorrow you say a liter of petroleum PMS is 800 for people who cannot even feed now. But if we put in place this cushioning effect, data-driven, not the cushioning effect of feeding puppies during COVID, data-driven. No, these are very serious issues. Data-driven. Look, if you know what data can do for us, now we take BVN for granted. Can you imagine the banking sector before BVN? A criminal on this camp, we have an account in all the banks here, and nobody will be able to trace anything. So if we leverage on data, we can actually put in place cushioning effect. They've done it. India has done it. India, when they wanted to promote household gas, because they have digital identity, they have mobile communication penetration, they have digital payment system. It was easy to reach everybody. Am I talking grammar? In Ondo State, in 2012 or so, when there was food inflation, and we said, look, we must do something. But because we had developed what we call Adeboye, which is the most versatile multi-application digital card ever developed by man, with 40 applications. Just with our card, we were able to reach 300,000 households in 3 weeks or so. Because once you take our palliative and we swap your card, you cannot use that card any other place. And we did it. Homegrown, completely. So what am I saying? We must be creative and innovative about palliative, the cushioning effect. And the sequencing, which one comes first. But the incoming government has to quickly put its heart together because that subsidy is going to go, but the cushioning effect must be effective and penetrate to the people that need them. The other thing I just want to talk about briefly because of lack of time is the cashless economy. The progress towards a cashless economy must be continued and accentuated a bit in a more organized, sensitive, and effective way. The apparent administrative incompetence, the flip-flop, and the little or no sensitivity to the needs of people that greeted the exercise up to now should not serve as a disincentive to the journey, but it must be carried to eventual actualization. As the benefits for the country's economy are so compelling, they are so enormous to be disregarded. This, for one, will be one of the most effective tools in the fight against systemic corruption in Nigeria. A cashless economy will be an effective tool, one of the most effective tools against systemic corruption. Leveraging on our deep mobile penetration, deepening digital identity and payment system will be an effective tool in government to citizen service and citizen to citizen interaction. And on and on and on. I have mentioned all of that. Now to round up, let me talk about job creation. It is very important. Jobs, jobs, and jobs. With 40% youth unemployment, the nation expects an innovative job creation strategy. The public and private sectors must work in concert. Jobs have to be created. In a world of automation, in a world where artificial intelligence seems to be threatening everybody, including doctors and lawyers, we still must create jobs. This is an irreducible level of accountability. The point cannot be overemphasized that government has responsibility to give direction to the private sector and hold it accountable. And we must recognize our place in the global economy. We made a mistake with globalization. We should not make a mistake with this emerging industrial policy environment. I'll give you an example. The textile industry was one of the biggest employer of labor in this country. We signed on to WTO and all the pretenses and all the prescriptions of these Bretton Woods organizations. We opened our borders. The Chinese flooded us with cheap textile. Now we lost more than 2 million jobs in the textile industry. COVID-19 is changing the world. COVID-19 has exposed the fragility of global supply chain. Globalization itself has caused a deindustrialization in the West, including America itself. Now, the West is sitting up. America has come up with the CHIPS Act, where they're going to subsidize semiconductor production by $52 billion. Oh, the high priests of neoliberalism talking about subsidy. The same thing. EU is talking about it. America is even talking of they should patronize made in America. What am I saying? The world is moving away from this globalization on steroids. We're moving gradually to a new world of industrial policy. And we must be conscious of this new movement. If not, we will be stuck in our neoliberal dogma. And again, the world will pass us by again. It is absolutely important for leaders to be sensitive to this. Absolutely important. And I said that it will be foolhardy to expect a fledgling economy. Now, I will come to it. It's easy for our people. We want to give an example of China. China is this, China is this, China is this. But we have not talked about how has China done it. How? China leverages its advantages. Size, market size, number one. Communist discipline. Cheap labor. And because they know about corporate greed in America and the West, for you to have access to their market, they had to expose them to their intellectual property. So they stole their technology. And manufacture, iterative manufacture, they perfected it to the extent that today, even in quantum computing, China is leading 5G. They leverage on this. So any leader that says China, 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 what are our own advantages? Number one, this incredible mass of young people, creative, resilient, thirsty for knowledge. What are we doing to them? 8 months, universities closed down. We don't give a damn. We talk about hoodlum. We seem bent on hoodlumizing a whole generation. We're not thinking of any advantage. Recently, I was discussing with my friend. We set up the first full-fledged medical university in West Africa in Ondo State as governor. 7 years down the line, they are graduating their first set, 32 of them. And people have come to me to congratulate me. I say, thank God. Well, you know what? Out of those 32, 30 of them are already preparing to leave this country. And the question I ask myself, some of my colleagues are here. They know all the thinking, all the thoughts, all the sleepless nights that we put into it. 30 of them are leaving. We have no answer to the Japa phenomenon. And we talk China, China, China. We have the biggest arable land that is left globally now. But what are we doing? All manners of land grabbers are coming in the name of investment, and we are just giving all this land to them. Those are our advantages that we're not leveraging upon. Our people are thirsty for knowledge, for God's sake. Look at this army of, look at the number of people that apply for JAM. Look at the number that eventually get it. Look at how creative these young ones are without any help from government or the generation, our own generation that hoodlumize and fail them. These are our advantages. If we want to take advantage of what is unfolding, these young ones, if we can leapfrog, if we don't leverage on technology to leapfrog to this century, we will continue to be first industrial revolution, we were spectators. Second, spectators. Third, spectators. Fourth, now, we want to be spectators. But it's about knowledge. And we have this team. Let us deliberately leverage on our advantages to be able to leapfrog development, to be able to create jobs and all of that. We cannot leave our economy in the hand of an invisible market. There is nothing so-called. Our economy must be deliberate, planned, and driven by government. Our industrial policy and our financial policies must shake hands. If power is our problem, the financial sector must commit to it. Deliberate government policy. You cannot allow our economy to just drift and drift. And I try to say, to summarize this, I love acronyms. I say for Nigeria, we must plan and target. We must target. The Chinese targeted 5G. They targeted quantum computing. They targeted their leaders. Taiwan targeted semiconductors. There's no nation that has driven, that has not targeted area advantage and put resources into it. What are we targeting? We have sunshine the year round, yet we import solar panels from countries who don't have sunshine more than once or twice in a year. Can't finish a solar panel, graphite, and some other. We have our advantages. We have lithium. We have nickel, we have cobalt, we have all these exotic advantage for the next generation of electric cars and all of that. What are we doing? We are allowing them to cut away all this raw. Raw, because we are a liberalized, civilized country. We must be deliberate. We must provide power and the financial resources. We must protect our local and infant industries, our MSMEs. We must protect our direct factory. The Chinese are already bringing Ashoke to Nigeria. When they go Gariwa, Nigeria, you can't compete with them, you start it. That is the truth. But we must use the instruments of tariff to protect our local industry. If not, we will just be crawling. You know what they will be doing? They will be giving you statistics, torture the statistics. I think somebody says, if you torture statistics very enough, you can make it to confess to everything, including that you are developing. We must patronize made in Nigerian products as a deliberate policy. If we don't do this in the unfolding industrial policy era that I see ahead of me, driven by technology, incredible possibilities of artificial intelligence and robotics, for which we can stick into it now. I'm not talking about talk is cheap. My colleagues are here. We built 51, what we call mega schools. State of the art. They compete with any school anywhere in the world. All of them come with computer laboratories, and they are for children of ordinary folk. And I was telling people in my cabinet then, say, these are the nerds of the next generation. Come and see these ones. My old primary school, 2 years after we put the computer laboratory there, when I got there and saw those ordinary kids on computer, they looked at me. What am I saying? In fact, we must plan for the next generation. If we don't want to be spectators again in the unfolding revolution that is coming, which is digital, which is going to be like no other one, this is the time. Because the jobs of the future, the massive jobs of the future, will come through digital technology. That we either, Franz Fanon says, a generation, you discover your mission. You betray it or you fulfill it. I pray that we fulfill it. And then we pray for the incoming administration that the good Lord. Oh, thank you. Thank you. In conclusion, accountability has been a drag in our development. Just have enumerated that. Development-oriented leadership. I like to emphasize that in order to mainstream accountability, appropriate metrics matter. Indices like GDP, debt to all those ones. Let me end up with just one index. So metrics matter. It is when you know what you are measuring that you know how to hold people accountable. For example, in Nigeria, 58,000 women die in pregnancy every year. And you can say 58,000, 58,000. But 58,000, what does it mean? 58,000 means that 2 planes, 747, 2 plane crashes every week for a whole year. All of them with pregnant women. That's what it translates to. If you never begin to see all of these indices in that light, you will not know how to hold your leader accountable. Why are people dying in pregnancy? Why is it that 1 out of 5 children in Nigeria, 1 out of 5 children die before they get to the age of 5? These are the type of indices we must promote. You know, grant me the indulgence to say that why it's important to get leadership right, the people must, through its community-based organization, develop the activism mode. We continue to look up to and continue to pray to God Almighty for enlightened, fair-minded, and empathetic administration, one that will build a united, prosperous nation where no one is oppressed. This is in sync with the biblical injunction rendered by King David in 2 Samuel 23:3. Thus, the God of Israel said, "The rock of Israel spoke to me. He that ruleth over men must be just, ruling in the fear of God." May God help our nation. Thank you.